guys, and welcome to another episode of the Alpha Male Podcast, where we try our hardest to push society back on track and more toward masculinity.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, you find today's episode interesting. Once again, we try to hit on different things every time that one might be of some interest to you.
Well, today I thought it would be interesting to hear your take on, we talk about kind of like little bits and pieces on where we think society kind of has lost its way. And I was wondering, what is your specific take on, like, where do you think men in particular, like, where did they get off track? And what do you think is, maybe the cause, some corrections that you think can happen? What's your take on it?
Well, when I look at the young kids nowadays, boys aren't the same way we were when we were growing up. Everything seems like it's got to be organized for them. Where we used to go out and play, and I know a lot of you will get a chuckle out of it, is you left as soon as you could because if you were around the house, you had to do jobs. And if you got out quick enough, you only had to be home for supper, and then when the street lights came on, and then we pretty much were in the neighborhood playing sports or doing different things that way.
So do you think like creativity's kind of gotten taken out of it? Like, do you think that's what it is?
Well, it's almost like everything's organized. I very rarely see kids outside playing by themselves anymore, where
Yeah,
it's just the kids. Usually, it has to be an organized thing where you have a coach or a
I
dumb
get what you mean.
mother or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you're right. Because, like, I remember even when I was a kid, I mean, we would play like Spud. I think I don't know, you threw up a ball and like someone yelled Spud. I don't know. You know what I mean? You had to like run towards somebody and I think you got SMUD steps and then you threw the ball at them. I just, I don't, or like Red Rover or Ghost in the Graveyard, where I mean, that was probably not the safest game that you would hide at night and play tag, but um, you never see that. I mean, we used to go in people's yards that we didn't know, and I've never had a kid run. I mean, when was the last time an unknown kid ran through your guys' yard? I mean, I can't ever
Yeah,
remember that happening as like a young adult.
yeah, and it just seems like now adults always have to be involved where kids never learn how to work things out between themselves. I mean, I can remember we would play baseball, and if there was an argument about whether you're safe or out, we would go do over. So you would just redo the thing. Everybody was cool with that. Where now, you have to have a parent decide what's right, what's wrong,
Yeah,
and not teaching you how to handle a disappointment, or if you don't come in first, that's okay too, because that's a learning experience. I didn't come in first in everything I did, but it made you realize you got to work harder if that's what you want.
yeah. No, that's very true. I think some like an argument against allowing kids to play without parents nowadays is that like the world is a scary place. You can't have them out of your sight. There's child predators everywhere, which I mean, don't get me wrong, they are out there, but I actually was listening to not that long ago some child predator expert. I mean, I don't know if he was a part of the police, the FBI, whatever he was, but he made a good point. He goes, so many people will argue that, but all the like child predators are just like everybody else. They advance with the times, and all the child predators are online now because that's where your kids are. And I thought about it. I'm like, that's a very good point. Like they're in the video games playing with your kid where you think like, oh, they're in the house, they're with me, when really they're talking to them in their headphones and like you don't know what's going on. And
Yeah, that's very true. Where, once again, granted, I'm a lot older than you, where we didn't have any of that. If you wanted to get a message, you had to go home if somebody called you to get it that way. Now, you could basically talk to anybody, and that's the scary part. But that's where it comes in, where a parent shouldn't be giving a kid access
Yeah.
to all of that.
I know it is pretty crazy when you hear all these stories about, I mean, I'm from the time of AOL chat room where we all, I mean, God knows who we were talking to on the chat room. And, we're pretending to be 18 years old and over, and we're like all of 12 years old at sleepovers thinking we're so funny. And so God only knows, I'm sure we talked to one or two child predators at least, but it's like a whole different world.
But you were protected in our house.
Oh yeah, I mean we're
you
not
weren't out there.
Yeah, and we're not giving our address. I mean we knew that enough. Whereas I think and we knew we were talking to strangers that we did not know. I mean like we did it as a joke. Like we're saying all this stuff where we didn't mean any of it. It wasn't going to go beyond that room and it was just funny. Now kids are comfortable. I mean, they think that they're talking to their friends because they're playing video games and like they play with them. They get more comfortable with these people and it just this technology, I think parents are thinking that they're safer for their kids to be playing a video game inside when I don't think that that's necessarily the case.
And then I think the problem with video games, which once again, I'm not very good at them because I don't play them very often. But I would rather play a board game or play cards, something where we have to interact, not some machine. And that's one thing I think where the kids don't develop how to interact with one another. And the other thing is disappointment. If I don't win at Monopoly, I go, okay, oh well, I'll try harder next time. And I think that just helps, once again, build kids' self-esteem on their own. It's not that we're giving them an award to falsely do their self-esteem.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother direction that I think is a big problem with. And I think that there is like the pendulum is swinging backward or like from back again to the right side of things where they aren't handing as many participation trophies out. But I'm curious to see what happens as that generation, like age group goes through like life and starts to hit the workforce. The ones that were given the participation trophies, how are they going to be? Because not everybody gets a promotion. And like the weird part of all of this is the schools started to adopt this weird stuff like the participation trophies and like they took away F's and they gave you E's because that was less harsh. And it's like, how is an E less harsh than an F? Because E means you failed, just like F meant you failed. Like, it's not because it's the first letter of failure that makes it hard. You know what I mean? Like, or like harsh. A, like, it's not for awesome, and B's for like be a little bit better. Like, that's not how it works. So, like, it just, whatever letter you like equivalent to failure, that's what it means. So, how the hell is E? I don't know. But they started doing like implement those types of rules, but real life didn't adjust to that. Real life is still the same, so it makes it more harsh when they're let out in the real world.
That's true, and I know I taught for 30 plus years, and once again, I'd always give a kid an opportunity to pass, but they had to meet the criteria. I didn't give it to them, but I let them make up work if they wanted to get a passing grade and be able to be successful. You help a kid out to bring them along the way, but you don't give it to them. Because if you give it to them, they never learn how to do it on their own. And that's where I think a lot of the problem is nowadays. A lot of these kids are so used to getting it handed to them. And like, oh, well, you failed, I'm still going to pass you along. That doesn't help build their self-esteem or anything else. It's better that they fail, stay back, and realize how to be successful. That way they can continue on for the rest of their life being successful.
No, I agree with that. I know that there was a point in time, I don't know if they're still doing this, but with like math, if you got an answer wrong, but you wrote why you thought the answer should be right, like you got a point. And it's like, um, that's not like life is a very hard teacher, like in the real world. And I just think, I don't know who decided to start coming up with these stupid rules that like eased, like if you need that kind of pain or harshness when you're going through school, because the real world is way worse. So if you have not experienced any of that during this whole thing, so if you're getting points because you think you're right, like, can you imagine going into a corporate job and you make a bad financial decision and you lose the company money and you're like, but I thought I was going to do it. Like, I thought that was going to turn out right. They're like, I don't give a shit. You're fired. Like, that's how the world works. And you, if the kid did not have that just points given for writing down an answer that he thought was like he felt was right, he would know to put a little bit more effort into getting it right. And that translates into the rest of your life. Like you have to put in effort to do a good job to get good results.
Right, and just like the parents that try to come up and defend Bobby and Susie,
Yeah.
why they're acting out in school or why they're failing and making excuses for them instead of trying to find out what can we do to make Bobby and Susie successful,
Yeah.
whether it's passing a class, fitting in with other kids, because we're all different and we all learned how to get along. But that was because we all learned to play together.
Hmm.
We weren't forced to. We wanted to. And without adults butting in,
Yeah.
we learned how to work it all out. And hey, granted, sometimes you got picked first on a team because you were a little bit better. There's been times I've been picked first. There's times I wasn't picked first. Like to be on a spelling team. That's
Oh,
not
oh
my
my
strong
God.
point.
That is probably one of your worst, your weaknesses. Absolutely. You cannot spell like
Uh,
at is a big deal when he gets that right. I mean, it's bad.
well,
But I can make fun of you because I have it too. It's definitely hereditary. We cannot spell at all. It's very
part of it
bad.
was growing up. We had about 50 kids in a classroom, and we, let's just say, it was easy to get over because the teacher had so many kids they had to work with. That was probably the one thing I didn't work on enough. Where math, on the other hand, I did, or history. But once again, we all have our strong points and we all
But
have our weak
and
points.
also you learned how to, I'm sure you had somebody else like kick you the answers. It's you figured out a way creatively to get by and like despite your weakness. And that's what kids don't
Well,
learn.
right, and how to work on it to make it a, I don't want to say a strength, but make it a passable thing.
Mhm.
Where now I know how to get by, or like all good men, honey, how do you spell this word? I
Right?
want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm right.
Well, thank God for spell check on stuff. Like if I always say if they never invented spell check, I probably would not be employed because my emails would sound like a 5-year-old wrote them.
Work in progress.
Yeah. But you learn how to get by. And I think that that's just not being like taught in our schools. It's not being taught to the kids. And like you said too, with not, learning how to deal with conflict amongst kids because there's always some adult intervening. Like, I just, a story that sticks out to me in an example, which I'm hoping that this is going to be an anomaly and not what we're kind of in for with the workforce. I remember I went to drop off something at it was UPS. They were closing in 6 minutes, and I needed this thing because I bought a bunch of clothes and I needed to return them. And this there was a kid who was probably all of 19 at the register, and I was like, something happened with their computers and they shut down. And I'm like, are you guys crazy? Like, seriously, you're not taking my package? And yes, I could have maybe been, I was in a rush and I really wanted them to take the package because they didn't want to drive there again. But this kid almost like shut down. Like he did. And I was not by any means crazy or anything. It was just, I was testing him, being like, guys, for real, like, you're really not going to take this. And he just could not even deal with that. He just looked down, got all red, and didn't know what to say. And the girl came up and talked to me and said, listen, this is what's going on. Our computer systems are down, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, we can't help you. And I'm like, this kid can't even, how did he go through school, the school system, and not know how to deal with conflict at all? To be able to be like, excuse, I'm sorry, ma'am. Like, this is the deal. Like, I'm so sorry. And it would have been
At least
fine.
give you some options of what they could possibly do for you.
Yeah. I was blown away that this kid could not deal with that. And I'm like, oh no, is this what we're going to be dealing with? And I mean, I've worked in so many service jobs and I know how it is to deal with customers. And the fact that this kid just did not have the basic skills blew me away. And I just, like I said, I really hope that that's not foreshadowing, but I do think it is with that group. But then I do think, because I'm a glass half full kind of person, I do think that the group behind them kind of people course corrected and they're coming up and they're not doing all this stuff because I think that they realized like, well, we went too far this way. Like we're babying our kids too much, and I am seeing a weird need for like 90s nostalgia with these young kids, and it's like it's kind of wild to see because it's like they're like I love the 90s. Like the 90s had a certain feel to it. There, it was before the internet, or like you had AOL and like, but that was like a novelty thing, and you had chat rooms and you got mail and that was it. It wasn't some elaborate thing. But like these kids seem like almost like they're longing for it, but they don't even know what they're longing for. But like, it's just weird that that's what they're kind of clinging to. Like they brought back like, oh my God, like FUBU, and like I've just been seeing like weird, like different brands that we had when it was like the 90s, and like disposable cameras are coming back, like just weird stuff that I feel like these kids who were born into the all about the internet and all about everything, it's almost like they're rebelling against it and saying like enough is enough. Where my generation, like our generation, I think is the most unique because we got to see pre-internet and after internet. And we see like, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with the internet. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't even know if I have an opinion, but like I just feel like how you were bringing it up, like I do think that there's some stuff that we need to correct on it. Like I think I heard that, man, was it Australia? I might be getting the country wrong, but there's some country that just banned social media for kids under 16.
It's a great idea. When you were talking, I was just thinking back in our day when we all got together and it was scrappy outside, where you couldn't go out. We played board games.
Yeah.
Where I laugh when you mention that to young kids now, they're like, "What's a board game?"
Yeah, that is
Where,
crazy.
they get on their internet and play a game by themselves. Where it was always nice because as you were playing, you were talking back and forth and
Yeah.
laughing and dogging each other and just having fun. Where I think that's missing nowadays. I don't see that as much in kids,
No.
but hopefully that's something we can work on now, change.
Yeah. Well, also think that, like, with these video games, the dopamine in their brains, and I think like their serotonin levels, everything, all your neurotransmitters are off because you're so overstimulated. I mean, it's almost like going into a casino. When you hear all the slot machines are going, the brightly colored, there's so much oxygen being pumped, and there's just yelling, and like you're almost like so overstimulated. That's how it is playing these video games, and these kids are doing it for hours on end. And I mean, they have to. I don't know what the percentage is, but I got to believe a large percentage of them are addicted to this. And then the problem is that nothing to them, like they lose excitement in life because if your dopamine receptors are so overstimulated, they're just like ready to crash. And then how do you expect to have excitement in your life? Because your brain's constantly going. same with like scrolling on social media. They say like that's like one of the worst things to do. Whereas like a board game, you had normal, natural dopamine like spikes when you won or talking to somebody.
Well, I'm just thinking like with Monopoly, you learn how to negotiate with somebody,
Yeah.
how to buy a property,
Mm-hmm.
what to do if you were in financial problem, where you would borrow money from somebody playing the game with you to get
Mm-hmm.
back on your feet. These were all life skills
Yeah.
that we all learned, and we learned how to deal with them as we got older.
Yeah.
Where nowadays, I mean, kids are given credit cards and they have no
Oh,
clue
none.
that there's a limit to it.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the mom and dad might say you can't spend over $200, to them it's like, oh well.
Oh, they have no clue. And I mean, financial education was bad when I was in high school when there was like checkbooks to balance. I bet you it's non-existent. I don't think that there's a financial class.
Well, one of the programs I used to teach the classes was called Personal Finance. And we used to go through how to rent an apartment, how to buy a house, how to buy a car, how to buy car insurance, life insurance, renting an apartment, a checkbook, a credit card, all the things that people need to know to survive out there. And I'm not putting down other classes in high school, but I can't think of another class once you get away from your parents
Oh, absolutely.
that you need to survive on your own. I laugh because I will still get calls from kids I taught many moons ago that are in their 40s and 50s, calling up and laughing, going, Coach, I remember when you told me this, I had to use it, and I just wanted to say thanks. And I don't know if we're doing that with today's kids like we used to.
No, I also think you're probably one of the very few teachers out there that gave out your personal phone number. But that was for the kids, so I think probably mostly to get out of jail if they needed a call. So yours was a little unique of a position. We did get a few. I remember picking up the phone and it was jail calling. They used it to their collect calls for you, but no, like that's true. Like nobody is taught how to manage anything anymore. It it just seems like even I bet you if you ask like the average person that has a credit card, like what's an APR rate, and they probably look at you like what, and they just don't understand. Like it's one thing to understand it and accept it. Like okay, listen, I need this money. This is how much I'm going to pay extra. It is what it is. But these kids don't know it at all what it is, and they just don't understand why their credit card just doesn't ever get paid off. But it's just like that's life. Like I think they're slowly marching.
Well, and now they up your limit so they get you reeled in even more.
Yeah, and like, and don't get me wrong, there's definitely a good way to leverage debt, but these kids are not like to leverage debt. You buy assets that make you money. You use other people's money for that. These kids are buying shit with this, like DoorDash. When you are paying $15 delivery charge on a $5 burrito and not even thinking about it, that's insane to me. And maybe it's a generational thing. I don't know. But that's what these kids are doing. And like they're wasting all this money. And I feel like they are slowly walking into this system that they are just basically slaves to their job. They're always in debt and they don't understand how. And it's because they're just not taught any life skills. Like they aren't taught how to cook. They aren't taught how to eat. So what do? They're door dashing McDonald's. They're door dashing Chipotle. And it's an everyday thing because that's how they eat.
And I was going to say eating. We'll take another whole
Yeah.
podcast on that because there's a lot we need to help with today's generation with the way they eat.
Oh, yeah.
But, once again, the things you brought up are so true that kids have to learn these. But once again, that's where you learn that growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents helping teaching them that or having the kids interact with each months do you have to pay that payment for?
Hmm.
How much is the total cost to you?
Yeah.
Because you may be paying for a car for 6, 7 years that isn't even close to worth what they're charging you.
Oh yeah, like that's the funny thing is I think a lot of people they don't realize that they think that they're negotiating the price because they focus on the wrong thing. Like they'll focus on the like monthly payment or no money down. So they're like, oh yeah, this car they advertised it at 800 a month, but now I got them down to 500. But they don't look the step further. Well, your term is lengthened, your interest rates
Right.
like they tack on all this stuff, but they just look at such a small thing, and I just feel like that is what they're doing to the younger generation as a whole. That they're just on. I personally think that it's on purpose that they're not teaching them the basics and they're kind of distracting them like, oh, concentrate on this while we make all this money over here.
And once again, we're going to do a whole podcast on how to buy a car,
Mm-hmm.
car insurance, and all that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't totally understand that.
No, well, I think that that plays into our overall theme of being an alpha male because when you have control over your finances, you understand stuff like you run your life, you make the decisions. You're not just like jump like after you get out of school, you're not just jumping on this life train that just is just making decisions for you or taking control of your money or that. Like I think that that's really like what an alpha male is that they're the ones that run their life. They make the
Right.
decisions.
And they look at things and can make an honest choice of
A
what's the
smart
best thing
decision.
for them.
Hmm.
And once again, to not just talk to one salesman, there's a whole bunch of them out there. But once again, we'll handle
Yeah.
that on another podcast. But what we hope you got out of today is start making your kids think for themselves.
Yeah.
Let them experience success and failure to a degree where you're not doing everything for them or everything's controlled.
And don't be so afraid. Like don't be so helicopter parent that I don't know, you're afraid that they're going to, fail in something. Like that's okay. Let them fail. That's like what if there's any time in life to fail, it's second grade. You know what I mean? Like when it doesn't matter. Who cares? And
Right. And we're not telling you not to be there,
no, but
but don't figure it all out for them. Be
absolutely.
there to cheer them on.
Yeah, and even if you're not comfortable letting your kids play outside alone without you, watch them from a distance. Like you don't have to necessarily not be there, but give them the illusion that you're not and watch like, make sure that they're okay, but they think you're not there, so that then that'll build confidence. They'll think that they're doing stuff on their own. So, do you agree?
I agree. And I guess with that, we'll wrap it up for today.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, we have many more topics to hit you with. Thank you for tuning in. And once again, shortly we'll have it where you could ask us questions.
Yes, we're going to get that going. For sure.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys. See you next time.